Hi, I'm Mohammad Akmal Rakib, student ID 28967801, and today I will be discussing the importance of high-performing teams in project management context and how they facilitate in managing project knowledge. To understand this, we studied the work of previous researchers and realized while there is a widespread belief that effective teaming contributes to overall project success, there is very little research in the project literature about this issue. Second, most team effectiveness models are derived from research on non-project teams, so we do not know to what exactly extent a project environment focused on time, cost, quality, or customer requirements lead to a different dimension in
So,
team
what are
formation and
teams?
maturation. Teams are basically a group of people who produce discrete work products through joint contribution of their members. This is what makes possible performance levels greater than the sum of all the individual bests of team members. In simple words, a team is more than the sum of its parts. And the foundations for any team is shared goals to track their progress, set of rules to maintain discipline, and norms to manage expectations
Usually, in
when
our
they're working
first project
together.
meeting,
We try to give shared goals, shared rules of set, which we will follow throughout our journey, has it as it has been the case for me when I was working in different various diverse teams in the project management course. But as Techman's model states, every team has to pass through the four phases of team development, which are forming, storming, norming, and performing. And likewise for me, it was many times when after this introduction, we would have some conflicts, we would have some interpersonal issues that had to be addressed before we could get to a point of norming and move forward where we start performing and addressing the goals and achieve
in an attempt
our
to
goals
understand
together.
the work around team dynamics, I was exploring in the area of myths around how teams work. And there was quite an interesting work by Lorelei Lingard, who mentioned his experience in the project context of medical industry. And he gathered some really interesting experiences, and I would list them down as four basic understandings of what are the realities of teams. Firstly, he says competent individuals can form an incompetent team. Secondly, teams can be competent even when one team member is incompetent. Thirdly, an incompetent team member can derail one team, but another team carries with the same person with quite success. Lastly, the same team can be competent in one situation and incompetent in another. So, trying to get our head around why would this be? So, according to the different aspects I've gathered from his research, I, I would say competent individuals can form incompetent teams because teamwork is more than sum of the parts, as we already established at the beginning of our podcast, as it requires social interaction, shared experience, and tacit knowledge. Similarly, a team can be competent even if one member is incompetent, because teamwork is a joint cognitive accomplishment. An incompetent team member can paralyze one team, but not another, because how the collective responds to the individual is the key, not the individual him or herself. And finally, a team can be competent in one situation and not in the next, because collective competence is evolving, unstable, and based in situations with varying social interactions and material conditions that can support or constrain teamwork in that moment. Social relations on the team are complex and nuanced and shaped by issues such as conflict, power, respect, and trust. And material conditions matter too, from shifts to schedules to privacy legislations such as materials change. So does the
I
collective
really
competence
enjoyed the
of the
work
team.
of Richard Hackman around the myths of teamwork, particularly because two of his myths could resonate with my experiences lately. Firstly, group harmony enhances team effectiveness, which I think is quite right in being a myth. Why? Because while I was working with my team in Guru's assignment, I could feel that everybody would say yes, and there were no conflicting ideas or there were no challenges to either my own work or anybody who was bringing in work. Everybody would just agree to what was happening. And that questioned myself that how I have worked previously where everybody would would have a storming phase and it would actually also help us be more competitive, but here we were not. Secondly, team effectiveness drops the longer a team is together. I think this is a myth again. Why? Because for us in industry project, we were together for a longer period of time as compared to what we were in the previous units, where the duration of the project was quite small, shorter. In this one, the as the time went on, we realized that we were understanding each other's skills and competencies better, and we were able to apply ourselves in a more effective way and more referring to the idea of excessive group harmony, which I mentioned earlier in one of the myths that I could resonate with. I came across a study by Ferda Erdem in her article Optimal Trust and Teamwork. In that context, I could actually see the words excessive group harmony which could be replaced by the word excessive trusting, which is actually very dangerous for the team itself. Why? Because, uh, for example, there are unintentional negligence or mistakes, but due to that excessive trusting, the team tends to trust what the other team members' work is and not challenge it. Thus, this trust can make people prudent and provident. On the other hand, innovation and discovery can start by suspecting the ordinary and the current paradigm. Distrust is also a way out of restricted thinking and mental monotony. Trust within teams is a function of other team members' perceived ability, integrity, and as members' own propensity to trust. Its main function is to provide synergy relations, which I would term it as team think. Trust performs these functions by activating appropriate social processes. These processes are broad and flexible role definition, intensive social relations, high confidence in others, help-seeking behavior, free exchange of information, giving priority to team objectives and needs, high commitment, and solidarity. Thus, trust is seen as a required condition for team working. However, excessive trust can create risks for team. More importantly, trust can result in groupthink phenomena, which is quite similar to what I was discussing as excessive group harmony. In such a situation, the team members apply self-censorship on their own thoughts that deviate from the team consensus. The team may apply social pressure to team members who argue against the team's shared beliefs. Together, they attempt to rationalize decisions within the group values and norms. In all controversial situations, agreement is sought. The illusion that failure does not affect the team is developed. Alternative thinking and decisions are not adequately discussed or analyzed, thus, wrong or ineffective decisions are taken. This situation is seen especially within teams which are autonomous in their decision making and which are subject to relatively low levels of outside interventions. And as mentioned, with Guru's assignment or the project work, there was little or very low level of intervention by Guru in influencing our project or project teams. Thus, I think this entire ideology is very much relevant to our work, which we have done over the course of the project management. I would like to conclude today's discussion with the idea of diversity in project teams, which is beautifully presented by Christina in her article, where she highlights how in modern day projects, political and economic boundaries are becoming more and more porous, and diversity in thoughts, knowledge, and competencies is necessary to increase the efficiency of project teams, as it fights excessive group harmony and similar concepts we have discussed earlier. However, it is important to manage it However, it is important to manage it with effective project leadership to avoid conflicts within the teams, as diversity itself can be a challenge if not handled properly. And a supportive communication is one way to ensure conflict free team experience. Thank you for listening to my podcast.